Chapter 5, Bond of Enigma. I was finally content with the budding bond between me and Preeti, and slept soundly for the first time in months. But my peace was interrupted by the buzz of my phone. Groggily, I checked the time, 5:30 a.m. and saw that Mitra was calling me. Why is he calling so early in the morning? I thought to myself, cutting the call with a hint of frustration. I got up and started my morning routine, with a cup of coffee in one hand and a small rose plant sapling in the other. Suddenly, my phone rang again. "Hello, what's up, Mitra?" I answered, connecting the call with wireless earphones in my ears. "Were you asleep?" "I'm sorry, Makha, I was just excited." Mitra replied. "For what?" I asked, as I carefully planted the sapling in a pot. "How was yesterday evening?" Mitra asked, getting straight to the point. "It was great. We had a good time," I replied, trying to keep my answer short. "That's too short to explain, Makha. When are you going to propose to her?" Mitra asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. "Are you out of your mind?" "We just met yesterday for the first time," I replied, watering the newly planted sapling. "That's the whole point, Makha. Will she come with you if she's not interested in you?" "She likes you, duh," Mitra explained. "I'm not so sure about that, Mitra. I need to take some time before making any big moves," I replied, placing the rose sapling on the windowsill. "Anyway, I'll see you in college." As I hung up, I couldn't help but think about my dad's advice: there may be no scope for exploring in love life, to be careful. But for now, I was happy just enjoying the little moments with Preeti. As the days went by, Preeti and I became more and more transparent with each other. We talked about everything and anything, whether we were with friends or alone. Our conversations flowed easily, and we even started working on assignments together. It didn't take long for me to realize stronger that Abhinva Preeti was the one for me. Mitra, on the other hand, was always asking me about Preeti and trying to prove that she liked me back. Sometimes, I felt like his observations were spot on, and other times, I thought he was just overanalyzing things. Despite Mitra's constant prodding, I didn't let it bother me too much. My focus was solely on Preeti. Talking and spending time with her was all I could think about. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, and my feelings for her only grew stronger. However, there was someone else who occasionally crossed my mind: Rakesh. He didn't seem like much of a villain, but I couldn't underestimate his role in all of this. I knew that things could get complicated if I didn't handle him carefully. A few months later, MBA block, Vishakhapatnam. I wonder if these answers are correct. I glanced over at Amita and asked if I could borrow her notes to check. "Sure, go ahead." She handed me her book, and I began examining the solutions. "Hey, Amita, your answers are spot on." "You're doing great," I complimented her as I handed the book back. Aisha was next in line, eager for me to review her work. "Okay, let me take a look." I grabbed her book and started flipping through the pages. "You took the longer approach, but your work is well organized," I noted, leaning in closer to the desk. Suddenly, I felt a hand on my shoulder, and Preeti's voice asked, "What's going on? What are you checking?" I turned to see Preeti peering over my shoulder at Aisha's book. I couldn't help but feel a bit distracted, lost in her presence. However, I quickly refocused my attention on the task at hand and continued checking the sum. As I was busy with the calculations, I failed to notice Mitra intently observing us from the corner of his eye. "Great job, Aisha. Your answers are correct too." I handed her back the book, feeling satisfied with our little study session. As the bell rang, Signaling the start of class, we all took our seats and turned our attention to Chakrapani sir. He began his lecture, and I focused on taking notes. Suddenly, Mitra tried to get my attention by calling out, "Hey, Maka, Maka." I turned to him and asked, "What's up?" Mitra leaned in and whispered, "Did you notice how Preeti put her hands on you? That's a clear sign she likes you, man." I rolled my eyes and replied, "Come on, not this again. Stop trying to stir things up." Mitra let out a low chuckle and leaned closer to me, whispering, "When are you going to believe me, man? Preeti definitely likes you." I just shook my head, not wanting to entertain his wild theories. Instead, I kept my focus on the lecture, taking diligent notes. Mitra, however, wasn't giving up that easily. "Why don't we put this to the test then?" he suggested, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "How?" I asked, curious. "Simple," Mitra replied. "Ask her out to a movie." I let out a laugh. "Of course, she'd say yes. We're friends." "Exactly," Mitra exclaimed. "That's why you should finally admit that she's into you." I rolled my eyes, feeling a bit exasperated. "You know what, Mitra? Sometimes, you can be a real pain in the neck." Mitra grinned mischievously and said, "Hey, don't underestimate my powers of observation. I'm just trying to help you out, man." I sighed, already anticipating that this wasn't going to end well. "Okay, fine. What's your grand plan?" Mitra leaned in and whispered his scheme in my ear. "Ask her out to a movie with limited occupancy, preferably a horror flick. If she agrees, then move on to step 2. "Which is?" I asked, feeling a bit skeptical. "Share a drink with the same straw and see if she's comfortable with it," Mitra explained. "If she is, then it's time for the final step." I raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "Tell her that a couple of guys made some rude comments about her and then pretend to protect her," Mitra said with a grin. "Trust me, she'll be impressed by your chivalry." I felt my eyes widen in shock. "Are you serious? That's insane." Mitra just shrugged. "Hey, it's worth a shot, right? You never know until you try." I rubbed my forehead, feeling a headache coming on. "I don't know about this, man. It seems like a lot of work for nothing." Mitra just patted me on the shoulder. "Relax, dude. Trust me, it'll work." I agreed to his words, not aware that I would get into further ambiguity with this plan. Test 1, the movie out. As the interval buzzer sounded, a flurry of activity erupted in the classroom. Books and phones were shut with a sense of urgency as students began to make their way to the block cafeteria. I noticed Preeti gathering her things to leave and quickly called out to her, with Mitra waiting for me to join him. "Hey Preeti, hold on a sec," I said, trying to catch her attention. She turned to face me and replied, "Yes Aditya. I was thinking of catching the latest Conjuring movie today. Would you like to join me?" I asked, adding with a smirk, "Assuming you have no plans with your boyfriend Rakesh." Preeti laughed and said, "Oh Aditya, Rakesh is just my cousin. And sure, I'd love to join you." "Great, see you then," I said, feeling relieved that she was free to come along. Preeti then turned to Mitra and asked, "And what about you? Are you coming too?" Mitra shook his head and said, "Sorry Preeti, I have a small work to finish. You guys go ahead and enjoy yourself." "Hey, why don't you guys come with me to the cafeteria?" Preeti asked, looking at both of us. Mitra spoke up before I could reply, "Actually, we have some work to finish up. But we'll catch up with you in a bit, Preeti." Don't wait up for us. Alright, see you later then. Preeti said with a smile, and made her way out of the classroom. As she walked away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of disappointment. But I knew that our plan needed to take priority, and Mitra was right to keep us focused. Mitra turned to me and said, "Well done, Aditya. The first stage is complete. She's single and interested in you. Now on to the second and third tests." "I'm not sure about the third test, Mitra," I said hesitantly. "Don't worry, Mitra reassured me. "I know a couple of guys in my area who can help us out. They may look like goons, but they're actually nice people. Trust me, everything will work out." "Thanks, Mitra. I appreciate your support," I said, feeling grateful for his help. Together, we made our way to the cafeteria, ready to take on the next stage of our plan. Test 2, the friend zone test. "Are you feeling comfortable?" I asked as we settled into our seats at the Jagdamba Mall movie theater. "I'm okay, thank you," she responded politely. "To be honest, I'm a bit scared of horror movies." "Please bear with me," she added, adjusting her throat. "Sure, no problem." I smiled reassuringly. "Oh, by the way, is there anything wrong with your throat?" I asked, concerned. "It's been feeling a bit sore today, please avoid Diet Coke for me today." She smiled, before turning her attention towards the movie that was about to start. I couldn't help but feel disappointed. Well, that's the end of my second test, I thought to myself, feeling frustrated with how it had turned out. My phone suddenly vibrated in my pocket, and as I pulled it out to check, I saw Mitra's name flashing on the screen. Probably calling to wish me luck, I muttered to myself before deciding to ignore the call. Test 2 is already a complete failure, I thought, not wanting to dwell on it any longer. As the movie began, I noticed that the theater was only sparsely populated, creating the perfect atmosphere for us. However, my attention was drawn to two shady-looking individuals sitting behind us. Looks like Mitra's third plan is in motion, I thought to myself. As the plot of the movie started to unfold, it became increasingly scary and intense. And then, just like that, the ghost appeared and the first jump scare took place. Within seconds, Preeti grabbed my hand tightly, clearly frightened by the scene. I looked at her, admiring the way her touch felt, wanting more. As her eyes widened with fear, I couldn't help but notice how adorable she looked in that vulnerable moment. But what truly warmed my heart was the unwavering trust she placed in me as she tightly grasped my hand. As the movie continued and more scary scenes played out, Preeti began to hug me tightly, seeking comfort and protection. I knew this was the perfect moment to implement my third test. Test 3, the Goons Act. As I sat before the screen, unsure of how to begin the third test, frustration began to set in. The other guys in the room seemed unresponsive, and their silence only added to my anxiety. Just then, my phone buzzed with a notification from Mitra. I quickly dismissed it, knowing that this was not the time for distractions. Suddenly, another jump scare startled us, causing Preeti to instinctively grab onto me for comfort. One of the guys in the back couldn't help but make a snarky comment, "This guy sure knows how to get lucky, he gets to hold her every time." I knew that it was time to start the test, but I was hesitant to continue with this group. "Maybe we should find somewhere else to do this," I suggested to Preeti. But she was unfazed. "No, it's okay. Let's just ignore them and carry on," she replied, her eyes fixed on the screen in front of us. Just as we settled back into the task at hand, another jump scare caught us off guard, causing Preeti to once again seek solace in my embrace. I couldn't help but smile, knowing that in this moment, we were truly in it together. Once more, the familiar voice chimed in from behind. Looks like he's struck gold again. That lucky devil, he exclaimed with a hint of envy. Let's switch seats, I suggested, hoping to ease her discomfort. This time, she agreed. It's working, I whispered with a grin as we settled into our new row. Feeling better now? I asked, turning to her with a smile. Yes, much better, she replied, returning the smile. But our moment of relief was short-lived as we heard murmurs from behind once again. Looks like the game continues, I thought to myself, feeling a sense of dread. What a lucky guy, she keeps touching him and her curves are pressed against him. It's like heaven. One of them exclaimed, their words dripping with lewdness. That was the last straw. I could feel my blood boiling as I clenched my fists to keep my anger in check. Hey, check out this girl. I bet she's a paid companion. Let's find out how much she costs before the show ends. One of the guys snickered, his words dripping with sleaze. Fury consumed me, reaching its zenith. I was ready to pounce on them, to put an end to their crude behavior once and for all. But just then, my phone buzzed again, and I saw that it was Mitra calling again. I decided to answer it, putting on my earpieces and placing the phone on the armrest. Mitra, what's going on? These guys are completely out of line. I've been staying quiet because I thought they were your friends, I said, my frustration clear in my voice. What are you talking about, Maka? I've been trying to reach you to tell you that my friends are out of town today. I couldn't find anyone to accompany the plan, Mitra responded, confusion evident in his tone. I abruptly cut Mitra off mid-sentence. Okay, we'll catch up later, I stated brusquely. Maka, wait. Listen to me, Mitra pleaded with urgency, but my mind was elsewhere. It didn't take long for me to piece everything together. These were the real thugs, and deserve a good treatment for their disease. Luckily, the interval break interrupted our movie, and the thugs exited the theater for refreshments. I'll be right back. Do you want some popcorn? I asked Preeti, attempting to conceal the rage simmering inside me. Sure, thank you, Preeti replied sweetly. As they relieved themselves in the public washroom, the goons exchanged smug remarks about their supposed superiority. That guy must be scared of us. Look how quiet he is around his girl, one of them sneered, grinning at his partner. The washroom was furnished with 6 toilets aligned in a row, each accompanied by a full-length mirror and pristine white tiling. I agree, but I can't understand why these hot girls fall for these guys, the second goon added, his voice dripping with contempt. That's because they're white and educated, the first goon chortled, his arrogance on full display. But what does it matter to us? All we want is to have our way with them. Before he could finish his vile sentence, a sudden, powerful blow to his head made him stumble forward and crash into the mirror, breaking it into pieces. Blood spurted from the wound, instantly staining the immaculate tiles crimson. After addressing the first goon, I glared at the second goon with fury. The other occupants of the washroom fled in terror, leaving us alone to settle our score. The goon charged towards me with his right hand poised to strike. I instinctively blocked his attack with my left arm, and then landed a powerful punch on his abdomen. The blow caused him to cry out in agony and sent him hurtling towards a nearby toilet basin, shattering it into pieces upon impact. The first goon, now back on his feet, brandished a shard of broken glass and lunged at me with murderous intent. I stepped back and spun to my right, striking his outstretched arm with a fierce blow that shattered the glass and left him bleeding. Before the second goon could retaliate, I seized his left arm and twisted it mercilessly, eliciting a cry of pain. I continued to twist and punch his flank with deadly accuracy. Don't you ever dare to disrespect a woman again. I bellowed, fueled by a seething anger that consumed me. In my blind rage, I failed to notice the first goon charging towards me with a hand dryer in hand. He struck me with full force, sending me reeling backwards and causing me to hit the ground hard. As I struggled to regain my bearings, I saw the two goons advancing on me once more, their intentions unmistakable. I rose to my feet, my left eyebrow bleeding profusely, and braced myself for the inevitable showdown. Preeti's gaze drifted towards my phone resting on the armrest, its screen lit up with an incoming call from Mitra. Aditya must have left it behind, she mused, deftly plucking the phone from my grasp and answering the call. Hello, Aditya. Mitra's voice crackled with urgency. Preeti speaking. Aditya left to fetch some refreshments and seems to have left his phone behind. Summoning every last ounce of my strength, I readied myself to deliver a devastating blow to the goons. But I knew that my bare hands wouldn't suffice. My eyes fell on an iron mop leaning nearby, its cloth head begging to be removed. With a fierce determination, I stripped it of its cloth and gripped it tightly, ready to strike with all my might. As the two thugs charged towards me, I swung the makeshift weapon with ferocity, each blow landing with a resounding thud. They tried in vain to defend themselves, but my onslaught was unrelenting. I hit them with all the strength I could muster, unleashing a fury of blows that left them reeling. Despite their attempts to fight back, I overpowered them, striking them repeatedly until they crumpled to the ground. But I didn't stop there. I continued to rain blows upon them, fueled by the adrenaline pumping through my veins. Even as they crawled and dragged themselves away out of washroom towards the refreshment area, I pursued them, determined to teach them a lesson they would never forget. As a small crowd gathered around us, I delivered my final blows, pummeling them without mercy. Preeti stepped out of the hall, still on the phone with Mitra, when she sensed something amiss in the air. The sound of a commotion reached her ears, and she instinctively made her way towards it, searching for me to deliver my misplaced phone. But as she pushed her way through the mob, her heart began to race with a sense of foreboding. And then she saw me, swinging an iron mop with a fury that left her breathless. In a flash, she rushed towards me, trying to push me away from the scene of the violence. "Stop it, Aditya!" she cried out, her voice laced with fear and anger. But I was too far gone, my rage fueling my every movement. I moved forward to strike the goons once again, but this time, Preeti did something that surprised me. With a resounding slap, she brought me back to my senses, commanding me to stop with a voice that brooked no argument. I flung the stick away, and the goons seized the opportunity to flee. Preeti's eyes blazed with anger as she turned to face me. "What were you thinking, Aditya? Why did you have to resort to violence?" she demanded. I tried to explain, gasping for breath between words. "Did you hear what they were saying? They were making vile comments." "That's no excuse for what you did," Preeti retorted sharply. "You can't just go around hitting people like that. It's stupid and dangerous." Before she walked away from me with anger. As she walked away from me, I struggled to regain my composure, wiping the blood from my brow with a trembling hand. In that moment, I was left wondering whether Preeti had intervened out of distaste for violence, or whether she was simply looking out for my well-being. Later that day, however, I would discover the answer to that question in a way that would leave no doubt in my mind. Hey! If you liked this episode, please make sure to share it with your friends, family, and loved ones. I would really appreciate it if you could leave your thoughts and predictions for the next episode in the comments section. Also, I'm a great creative writer and I'm open to collaboration. If you're a filmmaker looking for a creative partner, I would be happy to work with you to provide enticing storylines. Feel free to DM me on my email or WhatsApp, and let's make something amazing.